the good thing is we have the draft in an hour to finish, so.
All the Twitter blue controversy.
And we are live. Yes, I had to interrupt Burkoff.
But it's Matt, so it's fine. Hello, we are Pixel Pints. We are the only global podcast that talks about two things that we enjoy, which is good beer and video games. We're not here to promote drinking. Please drink responsibly. We're not here to also promote the playing of PlayStation games on PCs that aren't optimized, and actually EA titles that aren't optimized, or you haven't installed the day one patch, or the day 1.1 patch, or potentially the day 1.1.1 patch. Any beers or brews we're talking about aren't sponsoring us. Any games or developers or studios or publishers we might talk about aren't sponsoring us. We are never going to get sponsored by Activision because of the amount of times that I've described Bobby Kotick as an evil, vicious devil child. But he's won capitalism, so there is that.
He won an award. That's all that matters.
Yeah. If you want to find out what we do, you can follow us on Twitter to find out when we go live. Twitter's just turned into more of a scummy place than it was before. So that's basically all I do there. And you can follow us where I sometimes post stuff on Instagram about mainly beers. And that is at Pixel Pints Pod on Instagram and at Pixel_Pints on Twitter. You can find most of our episodes archived on our Twitch channel, our YouTube channel, because we're not a Twitch affiliate, so we don't have archived episodes. Just
except
go to
for any
youtube.com.
episode that I try and broadcast from the car.
They could all be downloaded on the dark web. I don't know, maybe the UK government is more into the dark web and unicorns than... We'll get onto that. But we're here to talk about some big news that's happening in the games industry. Don't worry, Mitch, I'm not fucking up the intro. There is a point to this. The biggest thing that's hit the gaming industry in years and years, the teaser trailer for Twisted Metal.
The TV show.
The TV show. Oh my god, that looks utter garbage.
Oh, I actually didn't watch the trailer. I only saw the poster.
I think it doesn't really show enough to really judge it. I wouldn't say.
Yes, it does. It goes
It
totally...
just shows Anthony Mackie going like, "It's me, Anthony Mackie."
I'm sorry, does Twisted Metal have a story?
Yeah.
Well, allegedly, everyone does a deal with the devil, and then they enter into this death race thing to try and... Yeah, so...
I just need to point out, original Twisted Metal has got such a lovely place in my heart. It was one of the... it's known for having like live action cutscenes for all of the story parts in like an old PS1 game. And they were great.
Okay, now we've got that major news spot out of the way. Liam, how are things with you? I heard you have had a problem with China.
Yes. Chinese people are pissing me off, but I have been playing a broken game all morning and enjoying myself. So, things are looking up a little bit.
Okay, so it's not all Chinese people. It's just the customer service team from the place that Liam bought a sofa. Just want to caveat that. And
just typical games publisher bullshit.
Yeah, and then Jedi survivalist in survival mode. I'm hoping you're having fun with it and you haven't seen any character models rubber banding around the screen. Moving on, Mikey, how are things in Pennsylvania?
Things are good. They're a balmy 52 degrees in the old Imperial system. And I'm taking care of my daughter for the weekend, and so far it's been great, but things have been awesome. I unplugged myself from multiplayer games for a while and had a good long run of Resident Evil 4. Been enjoying myself and just kind of prepping for the marathon that will be this summer.
Okay, have you investigated why it's called Marathon and not Athens?
Marathons? No, I actually have not.
The person whose name I can't remember ran from Marathon to Athens to warn of the Romans invading. So I don't know why it's called a marathon and not an Athens. But anyway, these are the things that plague my mind.
Maybe because Marathon was the place that was in trouble. I don't know.
Matt, how are things
Yes.
in LA?
Vegas.
Las Vegas? Well, I don't know. Who cares?
He didn't ask about where you live. He just asked about L.A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you
How
know
are
about
things
what's
in
going
LA?
on in LA?
I don't know.
Are you so insular that Nevada doesn't know what's going on in the next state over?
This is true. Yeah, we have no idea what's going on in California. I think most of the country has no idea what the hell's going on in California.
True.
Well, the only thing that I've seen that's going on in California is to stop homeless people trying to find somewhere comfortable to sleep.
Oh my
They're
God,
cutting
yeah.
out benches from everywhere.
Yeah, it's quite a disaster. But yeah, so apparently that's what's going on in LA.
Cool. Thank you for that. How's your career as impersonating a undercover police officer?
It's going well. Yeah.
Good.
I thought he was impersonating an undercover cop police impersonator.
Yeah, that's how he skirts. That's how
yeah.
he skirts the law around impersonating a police officer. No, I'm not impersonating a police officer. I'm impersonating someone impersonating a police officer.
Also,
Exactly.
be careful about the Uber drivers, Burkoff.
They have something.
Oh,
Against
sorry.
people with
There's
beards?
DoorDash. There's DoorDash drivers. Someone just got killed. Got shot delivering an order.
Really? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other day in England, somebody delivered the wrong item to somebody's address, and there was a bit of a shouting match for about 3 seconds before they realised that they were being a bit too aggressive with one another.
Oh wow! Isn't that
That's
a
basic
nuanced
It's over it.
topic? Oh my god! I wish we had that here. I really do.
Mitch, how are things in LA? I'm assuming that there were I was thinking that you'd show up this morning. I don't know, covered in streamers, glitter all over you from the party that would have been had at every Sony affiliated studio. That would have gone on from Wednesday probably to last night.
No, I'm good. I'm just having a ball.
Well done. Thank you for.
Remember, he doesn't work
pointing out
for Sony. He's just hired by Sony.
Yeah, but he's at the studio where there would have been the party and the streamers and the glitter and.
Yeah, if there's a party in the studio, I get to go to the party.
And I
Pixar didn't happen.
What allegedly funny thing? I should caveat that I find me hilarious. Everyone else can fuck off. I've forgotten what allegedly funny thing I was going to say next. So
you got a quarterback. That's all that matters. You got another quarterback.
Yeah, but did we? Because I was reading the brief. I was reading the brief on Will Levis, and it's basically the same brief that they did on Jake Locker, which is he's got all the measurables. He's got all the potential talent. He's got a really great arm. He's got a cannon for an arm. And then you read the points on weaknesses. It says inaccurate, even making easy throws. So why the fuck are we drafting this guy? I'm sure he's a very nice human being, but in terms of NFL potential, I think being able to throw the football from the quarterback position and actually throw it where you want it to go should be high up on the list.
Well, he is your third string. He's got to earn it, according to your coach.
Bye-bye.
Maybe, I guess Mrs.
I just had to leave.
Ms. McWomble needed the keys that bad. So anyway, awesome. All right, well, let's get on to it. We got some, what do you call it, beer cough? We call it beer talk.
Does anybody have any beers? I know Mikey sometimes has it this early.
It is too damn early.
I was thinking about popping open a Guinness. I don't know, I just felt like representing all these different groups who had various grudges against the United Kingdom. I'm gonna do that because he's gone. I'm gonna come back with a Guinness.
Oh, so
I mean, I like Guinness, but I can't condone this.
oh my god.
Condone the early morning drinking.
the early man in English bashing.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Well, McWomble was too upset over his quarterback to stay on the screen, so he walked away. And now another one walked away because they don't have a beer for a show that's about beer and video games. What is going on?
Oh, yes,
wow.
he's back.
Oh, wow.
That was quick.
Wow, he ran.
That's an extra stout too.
He ran really fast. He bulldozed. He must have ran over his daughter on the way to get to the beer, being like, "Daddy needs a beer." Just like knocks her down.
Daddy needs an anti-imperialism beer.
Or you should have asked your daughter to get you one.
I actually have actively resisted teaching my daughter to go get me beers.
Because you don't want her to show up in the middle of the night one night just going, "Here, Daddy, here's a beer."
Exactly. I don't want her like at the wrong time, like, well, Dad, you love beers. Here, like,
Right.
7,
like just in the middle of the parent-teacher conference or something like that.
Sunday
Once at
brunch
school
or
with,
whatever.
What's your
"Daddy,
favorite?
you like beers?"
What's your favorite activity at home? I like bringing Dad my beer, and says that at school. Oh my God.
I've had all of these exact thoughts, hence why I have not taught my daughter to get me any beverages.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm just dying. Oh
She
man.
grabs enough of them on her own. Like she'll like walk into the living room carrying it like 3/4 of a gallon of milk, and I'm like, "Oh."
So if it's a male teacher, I think you'll be fine. Just shed one tear, like, it's beautiful.
I could say way more, but it'd be so horrible to say on the stream right now about Daddy the beer. Oh God. Okay. We need
As far as beverages are going, I'm currently enjoying in a bout of anti-UK imperialism a Guinness Foreign Extra Stout. Probably my favorite of the actual Guinness line, because as much as I like normal Guinness, like on draft and stuff like that, the Foreign Extra Stout actually has the most flavor, because, you know, kind of like drinking vanilla Coke, a Guinness after like, you know, a pint or two in, you don't really taste the Guinness you're drinking anymore. And the vanilla Coke, the vanilla taste goes away after the third sip. So, but the Foreign Extra Stout has a nice robust flavor, and it actually is carbonated, not nitrated. So you actually, you know, get some tingle, some effervescence.
Well, in that way, the original Guinness was what you're drinking, rather than draft Guinness that
Exactly
now more popular.
Exactly.
Is more like a porter.
Yes.
Which is where its origins actually came from.
Exactly.
In Dublin, because it was made like a London porter, because lots of London porters went to get work in Dublin and brought the style of beer with them, and then
Exactly.
caught on.
Yep.
Because Dublin's a port city.
And just from my very light knowledge of, you know, international ABV laws or different crap like that, I'm guessing the Foreign Extra Stout at like 7.5% would just be called beer if it wasn't imported over
the
here.
reason that they have to increase the ABV is the travelling time. Guinness original here is 4.8.
Yeah.
So they have to up the ABV for the export version to deal with it not going off in transit.
Well, we do also get the normal, just the Guinness Stout, non-nitrated or not on nitro, and I don't like that as much as the Foreign Extra Stout. Do they bottle them or can them elsewhere? Because
Yeah, they do. The biggest cannery for Guinness, draft Guinness, is actually in Nigeria.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's the biggest one in the world. Hi, Lily. She didn't bring Daddy a beer. She just wants to see Daddy drink the beer. That's the way it should be.
As you're wearing Supergirl.
Am I alright to introduce a couple of beers then?
Yeah, go for it. Is that why you ran away?
No, I missed Wumble was at the door, so I had to let her in. It would have been pretty rude of me if I just left her outside and messaged her and said I'm doing a podcast.
That would be funny.
You wouldn't be married.
No, she would understand. 100%.
So I've got this is my bi-monthly pack of beers. So Siren Brewing is their 10th anniversary, and they partnered with a load of English breweries to come up with some different style of beers than they would normally make. So this one's in partnership with this company, which the BBNO stands for Beer by Numbers. And they do some really good, what I'd call old style beers. But this one is a red IPA, which I've only ever had a couple of times. I've never had this one before. It's not pouring very red.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a red IPA. I've had white IPAs.
I wouldn't say that's particularly red.
It's more amber.
If you hold it up to the light, it gets more red, but you won't be able to see that. That is actually really nice. I could smash about 4 or 5 of those. And then the other one I've got is Matt, picking up on your topic of iced beers.
Okay.
This one actually says on the can, it's a style of IPA sweeping the Northwest Pacific coast, super light base with a touch of rice to let the ferment and the yeast and for a crisp profile and incredibly using frozen hops. So this is what they've done.
Yeah, that's a thing now apparently. The cryo hops.
Yeah, so this is a cold IPA. One of the cans that I got, Matt, you may have loved. It went straight down the sink.
Oh, really? Was it a heavy imperial stout or something?
No, it was a iced latte IPA.
Oh,
I don't know that I would have liked that. It depends. I like some coffee flavor, but not.
I literally took one sip. Down.
Pabst Blue Ribbon makes a bush latte here in the States.
They do like a coffee thing, yeah.
That is super light. It doesn't actually taste very much. It's.
But all my Ohio kin, they drink Bush Light, and all summer they refer to them as Bush Lattes.
Okay.
Yeah, that really doesn't taste of anything very much. Just quite a straw, grassy taste, and that's about it. So not a fan of that one. The red ale is absolutely amazing. And then if I get there in the end, I have half a can of Pilsner Urquell, which is probably the best kind of drink or lager that you can get around here.
Nice. I like before, like when you had it far back, just because of the coloring, I thought it was like a Carlsberg, because I couldn't read it.
Yeah, this is where is this from? Actually, this is Czech.
Czech,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I've got some Estrella and various other stuff in the fridge for later. Have we done what flavour Alani Mitch has got?
The answer is none.
See, the thing is,
hand in your Alani badge right now.
I'm good.
see, I'm about to bring up that meme. Is that it's been so long, I don't know what Lani's are, and it's been so long, I'm too afraid to ask.
All good.
It was for some time Mitch's favourite energy drink, but
Oh, okay. I didn't even know it was an energy drink. I was
Yeah,
like,
it's just an energy drink that I was drinking more often, especially in the mornings for this show. But nope, I'm off the Alani for a bit. Not for bad reasons. I just was like, I don't need to drink it right
they
now.
haven't issued a recall warning or something.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. There hasn't been some kind of FTC
No.
Not FTC, FDA thing. So if you drink too much Alani, your children will turn a different color, like with.
No, but I bet you a crazy judge would overrule that.
even if your children are already born, it'll still change their color.
Well, there was
Sounds like Sunny D or something.
Sunny D, that's the one. Thanks,
Yeah.
Liam.
Oh, I love Sunny D as a
in the-
kid. Oh, so good.
Sunny D
in
and
the UK, they had to issue a warning to parents that it was actually turning their children orange if they drank too much of it.
Oh my god.
what did it have too much keratin in it? Like,
Yeah. Oh, I don't know what was in it, but there was some ingredient in it that was actually changing the pigment in people's skin.
I mean, that can happen just with carrots. That's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
that's why they feed flamingos in zoos carrot pellets. So they keep so they keep pink, otherwise they'd go white.
So they turned Donald Trump colours.
Yeah, Donald Trump doesn't actually use fake tan. He just
Eats
trades
a lot of
and drinks
carrots.
loads and loads of-
He just raw dogs 14 pounds of carrots a day.
You know what's in those McDonald's burgers? Carrots.
Right. Shall we move on to the topic at hand?
Yep.
Yes.
I will be right back though, but keep going.
Are you just going away just to laugh it all out?
Nah, I'm good.
All right, then Liam gets to leave next, and then Burkhoff gets to leave next.
Yeah, well, I do have a hard out at like 7:45, 7:50. So
Well,
make it count.
Matt, I'll just do a very quick introduction, then I'll let you comment first.
okay, sounds good.
Other people feel free to interrupt him anytime you want. So yes, we are here to talk about the big gaming news from last week, which was the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority in the UK, formerly known as the Monopolies and Mergers Committee, which I think probably in this situation would have been a more apt title for them based on what they said. Either that or Lazy Bastards. That might have been another one. Refused to approve the acquisition of ActiVision Blizzard King by Microsoft. Matt, what are some of yours and potentially Daisy's thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, so I mentioned this in the Discord. It's almost, what's the expression, the cart before the horse, right? Like they're supposedly worried that the acquisition of ActiVision Blizzard King is somehow going to propel Microsoft into the stratosphere with cloud gaming, and they're just going to eclipse everybody. There's only 3 companies, I think, that have potentially the ability to even do cloud gaming on the scale that they're thinking. Microsoft
But there
is
might
one.
be a different one.
Microsoft is one. Amazon is another, which they're trying, and Google, and they bowed out and they're done. They're not going to do it.
Ooh, they don't even count
That's
PlayStation's
necessary,
cloud
though.
gaming.
Well, so
Well,
if
see, the
you-
thing is, PlayStation would have to contract with a company like Google or Amazon in order
They
to have
do.
the
and
infrastructure.
they're called Microsoft. PlayStation, to run the PlayStation streaming service, use the Azure architecture.
Right. So, yeah, it's just crazy to me that the UK is trying to legislate competition into a market that doesn't technically exist yet, because
Well, parts of their remit, and OTAPs from Singapore's favourite Essex-based gaming podcast did say that part of their remit is to look at opportunities to avoid conflicts and competition in future.
Which on paper, yes, technically that's what they'd be doing. But just a real quick backtrack. So you're saying PlayStation does use the Azure architecture for their streaming. So they basically swept their Gaikai purchase under the rug? Like,
It seems so.
Gaikai has the tech that is how it gets delivered, but you still need the physical infrastructure to actually
oh,
deliver it.
okay, gotcha. So
Yeah.
like the Azure server system, like go rent $5 million
Yeah, exactly.
worth
You
of
can
tech
you can run
hardware.
You can run
Gotcha,
any
gotcha.
software you want on Microsoft's
Gotcha.
platform. Yeah,
Gaikai was the software, Azure is the actual hardware running. Okay.
technically, yeah.
Yeah, but it's all part of the overall architecture system to deliver streaming on PlayStation.
Right.
So the point that I was trying to make in our Discord on that basis is, how is that different to Blu-rays then?
It's not though. Yeah, I mean, those you made a good point, because, and the thing that I brought up too is like GPUs. So the AMD just can't make chips now because everybody uses AMD chips. Like, it doesn't make sense. You know, it's the same argument.
Yeah, and what I was trying to get at with the point on Blu-rays is that you're basically punishing people for being a success at doing something. So, retrospectively, the adoption of Blu-ray, which is Sony patented technology.
Mhm.
Could the CMA review that and say, actually, that's restricting competition in the physical media market, and we need to say that actually Sony, you can't force people to use Blu-rays anymore, but everyone's adopted Blu-ray already. So I'm genuinely confused by the decision.
Where was the
Not-
CMA when the Yakuza was monopolizing the printing of CD-ROMs in Japan?
Well, technically that's outside their remit, so they wouldn't care.
That's what I was actually going to get at. How does the CMA have authority here in this situation when aren't Activision Blizzard King and Microsoft both America companies? Or
Well,
They're still doing
yeah,
business in the UK.
They do business there. Activision, to avoid paying tax in the US, have a office in the UK where they class themselves as a offshore account in the US, so they don't have to pay tax on earnings in the US because they move everything to the UK. And then somehow move it back because I don't know, that's not corrupt at all. For many reasons, for the many reasons that I thought this deal would not go through,
This was not one of them.
this was not one of them. Liam, you have opinions on this. I would like to hear them, and maybe others would as well.
Well, first I'll start off by saying that even though Stadia doesn't exist anymore, Google is still out there as an option. Like they're still doing lots of work with their services. I think Google are partnered with the company that provides cloud services to another company, I can't remember the name of, that provides cloud solutions for Nintendo Switch. Just for instance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Google's trying to market, like once they shut out their actual like retail Stadia down, they're like, hey, we still have all this tech. If anyone wants to buy it or rent it for your own projects, we got you handled.
To be
I
fair,
think,
Google was about a year and a half ahead of Microsoft as well. Like their tech was superior. So go ahead, Liam.
I would say I think one of the things that people get a little bit stuck in the mud about is that they need to remember that Azure and like Amazon Web Services, things like that, they're a service first before they're an actual product. You know, it's a product for other people to purchase and use at their discretion. And I can see where problems may emerge from the same company that's developing the cloud technology, also basically having a monopoly over that technology. But there's no way in hell that they can have a monopoly over that. I mean, if Microsoft just decided sometime, we're no longer going to offer our Azure technology to other cloud gaming services, well, I think pretty much every benefactor around the world would have a huge problem with that, and they'd get sued into oblivion.
Yeah, which is why I think the fact that they have already partnered with Sony, and a partnership, although a contractual one, needs two parties to agree to it. Again, I'm confused as to this being the reason that the deal didn't get approved.
Keith, I think one of the reasons Sony partnered with Microsoft, not specifically because of their technology, but specifically because they both agree on the fundamental point that they want to keep Amazon and Google out of gaming. They want to keep them out of that space. Neither of them want either of those companies.
But then it seems like that's I'll talk about conflating arguments in a bit. But there's three elements I want to get through with you guys. So one is the decision itself, and then two, who is this good for? If the CMA believes that it is good for the people of the UK, is it therefore good that other trade commissions, so the EU Trade Commission are looking at it, the New Zealand Regulatory Commission are looking at it, obviously the FTC is still have their lawsuit in check, and then finally Microsoft and ABK's response.
Activision's response. That sounded like it's a little salty there. Like,
well,
it's almost sorry. The only thing I read out of their statement was how completely unprofessional that statement comes out. Whereas like Microsoft is suit and tie, being like, we
More
do have to
balanced.
work with these people here. Like, let's be respectful to say we disagree, but we will like go through our channels. And here, just Activision's just like, this is a warning to maybe not do business in the UK anymore. It's like, wow, are you trying to really emphasize them to say, okay, you really don't want to do business in the UK? We're not going to let it go through.
Well, there's
Yeah,
that
because
is
Activision has so many UK employees. So
well,
no.
that's a direct jab at what the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have been saying over the last few months, which is that post-Brexit, Britain is open for trade. We want to become a tech hub. We're going to be offering tax breaks for high-tech industries, all of this kind of stuff. And then the first decision that gets made after all of these lovely statements is we're not going to approve the biggest tech deal in history to go through. Because reasons. And the sorry, Mikey, I just want to get this out whilst it's in my head. So there's two things that would confuse me about this, and this is why I think they're conflating objections. So it seems, at least to me, that there was some kind of fundamental disapproval of this acquisition from the outset. And that was based on Microsoft monopolizing IP. And all of that went through, and Microsoft did basically bent over backwards doing all of the possible things that they could to say some of the numbers that you presented by Sony were incorrect, but yes, we would still own a major share of IP. But the CMA approved the purchase of Fox by Disney to make them technically the biggest media streaming or biggest media owning company in the world.
Yeah.
However, with that being said, though, like I think the one thing I'll say difference in the movie industry is like Disney, like in regards to like sales and like how much they sell in movie tickets and things like that, like revenue stream, Universal makes just as much as Disney does, even with the Fox acquisition. Like Universal has multiple fields making $1 billion.
Dollars and cents or pounds and pennies, mate. I'm thinking kind of IP, because that was the
ideas,
the
back catalogs,
objection.
All sorts of stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't think this deal should go through, because Microsoft would basically create a de facto empire of IP that is already some of the most popular IP in gaming, and you would just own that outright. And we don't trust you to do what you say you were going to do. And then
I guess the only difference would be Fox didn't have any hot IP at the time. That's why they sold.
They got tons and tons of
but like what sold, what was selling as well as like equivalent to a Call of Duty for them. They didn't have a Call of Duty in their back pocket at Fox.
No, they had all of the TV shows through all their back catalogue, all of that IP. So because the argument that was being made at the time was you are going to own too much popular stuff. And that deal still went through.
Yeah.
Then the argument now is you're going to own too much popular stuff on your platform that is a growth market of video game streaming. Now, Erebus Jones, old friend of the show, said anyone who believes that you can play Call of Duty on streaming should be forced to play it for 2 hours.
No, he said that the regulators' kids should be forced to, and that would change their opinion on the matter. Yeah.
So I think what they've basically said is, we believe that there is a growth market in streaming, and we don't want you to have too much IP that you become a de facto monopoly. Which is why I'd said earlier on, I think their old name of the monopoly Monopolies and Mergers Committee would have been more apt in this instance, because what they basically said is, we don't want you to create a streaming monopoly.
Yeah.
But we also know that they can't create a streaming monopoly because there's other companies out there who could say, we're going to partner with Google or Amazon, and we're going to try and push Microsoft's market share down. The thing that also confused me about this is, if Sony are paying to Microsoft to use their streaming architecture to run streaming services on PlayStation, doesn't that create some kind of level of hypocrisy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here,
I have two things I have to I want to say before I have to leave. One is, I think the decision is kind of wonky because it presupposes that cloud gaming is going to take over 100% of the market, which is a fundamental misunderstanding of the technology as well. Because
you're not speaking to Michael Pachter.
Well, all right. So Pac, yeah, I agree. I agree with Pac that it's going to take over the casual market, but there's always going to be other ways to game, right? Like you've got stuff like the Evercade and like all these other niche markets for
pencils,
collectors,
paper,
stuff like that.
Whatever handheld Nintendo next put out.
Right, exactly. Like that stuff's always it's always going to be in existence, and it's not going to be 100% of the market. That's absurd. And okay, so you have an opposition to cloud gaming. What about digital distribution? It's effectively the same thing. One lives on a system that you own versus one lives on a system that you rent, through licensing fees, basically.
Well, and it's shifting. I mean, this is probably the tactic, because they're like, well, it didn't work in this way, but they're originally attacking Microsoft for, like, think of it as like a railroad. They were originally attacking Microsoft for, like, you would own too much of the product you're putting on the railroad, like you're filling up the shipping carts with. Now they're attacking them for, well, you're building too many railroads. You're one of the biggest railroad builders. So that's now why we're objecting to this, because you'd be putting your own stuff on your own trains, and that's not fair.
Right.
Like it's, so they're like, what are we supposed to do? Not, so you don't want us to have product, you don't want us to make railroads. What am I supposed to do? And if we invent some new market, you're going to have a problem with us for that. Because they literally, now they're attacking services infrastructure ownership / innovation / putting all the money into, versus the products that are just going to be shipped on it. And going back to just what Matt on Sifted is like banging his fist on, he's like, you can't, like, there can't be a monopoly on ideas. Ideas are technically infinite. You can claim, like, and that's the case. Like if they were buying all manufacturers of pens, like, so you couldn't write a story without paying Microsoft for something, that'd be something different. Or you couldn't, like, or all napkin corners to scratch out game ideas on. No.
It's kind of like the CMA. It's kind of like the CMA are just going, Microsoft, actually, we agree with you. This is a really smart investment for the future.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do it. It's like...
Yeah. But
it just doesn't compute.
Man, I had
another
thought I'll interrupt you for.
As a part of the decision as well is based on the CMA's future ability to actually manage the acquisition. So if you read the statement from the CMA, paraphrasing, it said, for us to approve this, we'll actually have to do some work, and we'll have to monitor all of the promises and all of the agreements that Microsoft have made with all of these other streaming services. We don't feel like it, so we're just going to say no.
They don't actually have a regulatory framework with how to deal with it. So they're
well, there is a regulatory framework for how to deal with it. They could regulate it. They could monitor whether or not Microsoft is fulfilling all of the promises that they've made, all of the contracts in terms of all of the agreements that they said they were going to do. All of those would have to be signed contractual agreements, but the CMA would have to monitor the delivery of all of those contractual agreements. And they've said that would cause them work. And part of the reason that they gave for not approving it was that they don't have the ability to monitor it all.
Right.
But it's interesting because from a political level, I think this makes the UK look rather bad in lapse of recently leaving
We don't
the
have to
EU.
try very hard, do we, at the moment, Liam?
Yeah, well, agreements and disagreements, but getting away from that, I think it's going to look rather strange if the EU decide next month,
To approve the deal.
we're completely fine with this deal. We see
this
no
is one
problems.
thing I wanted
We're
to.
primed and ready to monitor Microsoft and all of their future interactions with all of these companies they made contracts with. And if I was a CMA, and quite frankly, if I worked in English government, I'd be putting pressure on them to go, okay, yeah, we can do the same. Yes, we're competent. We know what we're doing.
But then whichever MP that was would probably get accused of bullying, because I would be in my office if I was the MP and I'd actually seen this and then saw the EU ruling come down in favour of approval, I would be effing and blinding the wallpaper off the walls. So just to give you guys some context, so things that our regulatory bodies haven't banned, the release or putting a cap on the release of raw sewage into our rivers and seas, that hasn't been banned.
Nice.
There's no cap on that. And also a daytime ban on advertising for gambling, and the restriction of gambling as sponsorship for sports teams and sporting events. That also wasn't regulated, because we need a free and competitive market. But cloud gaming, you better regulate the shit out of that.
I mean, if the EU approves it and the CMA doesn't, it's just going to go back to the early days of pirate radio, where they just set up a whole bunch of server banks on the coast of France, and so all right, just broadcast it over. We're not in the UK. We're just across the channel. We don't have to pay the BBC. All right, see you, bro.
Bye, Matt.
Bye, Matt.
Cheers.
Enjoy your hiking. Please don't randomly shoot anyone who might show up at your door.
Unless it's a politician.
I'm actually going to do a bathroom check on my daughter. Saves me lots of hassle later.
So there's that element to it that I find confusing as well. I find this lack of approval confusing on many levels. I thought if they were going to restrict the sale, it would just be on the basis of, we don't want you to have a monopoly on all of the most popular IP that is currently available. So I think they've come up with a different argument to fulfill that.
Well, it's a strange argument as well, because it's like, what can Microsoft do to satisfy their concerns? Is it an IP problem? Is it a service problem? Is it a problem with them just being too smart in terms of their investments, and they need to be a little more stupid?
Well, they've made it a service problem now. So for this deal to go through, Microsoft would have to say, we won't engage in putting a certain amount of IP on streaming, or we will only put the IP that agreed with third parties available on streaming, which is really weird because Sony would never do that. Nintendo would never do that. Ubisoft would never do that.
It's their IP. They should be allowed to put it wherever they like. I would say, personally.
Yeah, but they can't now, because the restriction of the acquisition has been on their ability to make it available on streaming. So what they'd have to do is promise that they would never allow Call of Duty on a streaming platform. So Call of Duty could never go to Game Pass.
It would be better if they could just promise to allow anything they have to be on the streaming platform.
But that's not what was written in the objection.
Jesus. One problem I have with all of this as well is it's sort of like, do you want them to promise to offer Azure to everybody? Like that everybody should be able to use Azure?
Yeah,
It's
but
sort of like,
if they did that, then
yeah,
you have
yeah,
Google and Amazon
oh,
on their
God,
back. So it's
that-
basically
that's really bad.
the
That's really-
CMA have pushed Microsoft into a corner, and now it would be good to get onto the kind of, I said three things. So there was the decision, and the what do Microsoft do now, and then there was the response. But kind of 2 and 3 are kind of more like 2A and B. So Mitch, what do you think Microsoft can do now?
I really don't know, to be honest. I was pretty shocked by reading what was said and what prevented them. Like, obviously, I did the bold prediction being like, this acquisition is not going through. I didn't really think it would happen this way. Like, I just, I don't think there's anything Microsoft really can do. They're in a corner that they can't get out of. Like, literally, basically, I'm not shocked, actually. In my brain, I was like, if they're going to stop this, they're going to come up with the most obscure thing you've ever heard of that basically feels like Microsoft won't be able to solve, which then therefore they could not go through with the acquisition. And then if someone tried to do it in the future, as long as it's not like, basically, I think that's what was like in my brain of like, that was one of two options of how this was going to go.
So
and this has ended up being the
basically-
one that's how it's going to go.
So basically, what you're saying is no one can buy Activision Blizzard King,
No one as big as Microsoft can.
but no one else could afford them other than
True.
Google or Amazon.
True.
In
Like,
which case they'd also run into.
but
the
that's
same
what I'm trying to
issues.
say, right? Like basically, that would be the only way. Yeah, basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, is like no one is going to be able to buy them. They're just too big. In
But they
video
want
game
to be
terms.
bought.
And they
That's
want to be
the thing.
bought. Like, it's weird. It would be interesting to see what happens if like Ubisoft would get purchased. Like, would they get the same treatment as something like an Activision Blizzard? Maybe. I mean, the size of how many studios they have is equable in size. May not be in IP, but still in size. So I'm curious if that ever would happen. How the situation may be the same or different based
Also,
off of that.
the EU would be looking at that more closely than
Correct. Yeah.
than UK regulatory body.
I think also and I think the final thing I'm thinking of is like mainly I think because the FTC is suing over the acquisition that it's making the UK think a little harder about it, and them trying to find out them thinking a little harder and then going, okay, maybe this isn't really good. Okay, let's come up with the reason why they shouldn't be able to do this.
There's the big P politic in this whole thing is as part of Biden's visit to Northern Ireland and Ireland, there was a speech prior to his visit by one of the I can't remember the company, but it was a US-based company, and they were looking to invest in the UK. And they said the only place that they could put a new office was Northern Ireland because of the regulatory links with the EU, which is the special arrangement that is going to get torn up this year in June, apparently, which will mean there will have to be hard border checks on the island of Ireland, which the Good Friday Agreement explicitly says that there can't be. So all of this basically shows that we're all a bunch of incompetent know-nothings, and we can't run our country effectively. And this just adds to that kind of global perception of we don't have a Scooby-Doo what the hell we are doing.
In fairness, I don't think the EU does either, but you know.
Yeah, it's just a weird situation in general. I
would have thought that there would have been political pressure to say get this deal approved, to make us look like we are an attractive place for particularly
Commerce.
major US-based companies to do business, especially since all of the politicians who said that Brexit was going to make this country amazing and we were going to have better lives. And the latest news story is that the governor of the Bank of England, so basically your head of the FTC, said everyone in the UK has to just shut up and deal with being poorer. So a man who earns £190,000 a year plus bonuses has basically told the rest of the country, shut up and deal with being poorer. And all of those politicians who said that this country was going to be amazing post-Brexit have said, we will be doing a trade deal with the US. Not anytime soon.
But not Microsoft, though.
Well, this is just going. If you think what happened with the FTC hearings, where I've blanked on the congresswoman who stood up and said, "Well, what about Sony in Japan?" I'd like to see where her campaign contributions came from. It just makes all of that more complicated. So I don't.
Yeah, to be honest, I really just think in the end, like, basically in a nutshell, I think from what this came out, I now am like more of like 60% positive this is not going to go through.
I think it's all going to depend on what the EU ruling is.
But what do you think? Like now going around the room, because I'm assuming your next topic is the other thing we're going to talk about.
The response, yeah.
Oh, the response. Okay, we can talk about the response
Real quick,
and do predictions.
Before you do the response, all this is over, when all this is over, if the deal does go,
it's never going to end. We're going to be talking about this in 5 years' time.
I know,
and they have to write a new contract now too. Their contract has expired. They have to write a new one.
Well,
there are provisions for it.
They have to pay. That Microsoft have, regardless of what happens. So if the acquisition falls through, Microsoft have to pay ActiVision Blizzard King $3 billion. So, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about. Is so Mitch's favorite topic of Microsoft being Xbox being mismanaged. Is this just another symptom? But we'll get on to that.
All I was going to say is
there's other things here. So when we need to know when in the contractual arrangements between Microsoft and Activision Blizzard King that $3 billion becomes payable, and is it at the end of the regulatory process, or can they? Is it at the specific date that the deal was meant to be agreed? And is the board at ABK going to agree an extension to that, or are they just going to have to tear up the contract? Microsoft are going to pay $3 billion, and they have to rewrite the whole contract again. There we go.
If Microsoft is able to finally get this taken care of, I'd love to know the amount of money that Sony specifically shelled out to try and stop this from happening. And wonder what could have happened if they had poured that money into some new IP or some new type of thing. Because I have to imagine it's not cheap for them. Like, obviously they feel that that stopping the progress of another competitor is more, has a better payoff than building their own progress. But Mikey,
a few years ago, Jeff Keighley got the three heads of Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo on stage, where they basically said, "We're going to do this together, and a rising tide makes all boats rise." Are you trying to say that they were lying to us?
Also, I would argue.
Well, no, Jeff was lying. They weren't.
I would also argue, Sony's still buying studios left and right.
Well, they announced the other day that their acquisition budget to support those studios who they've recently purchased is going to increase. So
I don't.
I'm continually baffled by the rationale for why the CMA has not approved this, other than if they just ground some bollocks and get sued and said, "We don't want you to buy the most popular the company, the parent company who make the most popular video game in the world. That's it. Thanks very much. Fuck off and sue us. And then they would have lost in court, but at least they would have had a genuine reason as to why they've not allowed the sale to go through, and coming up with this weird conflict.
This whole thing is like watching the Olympics, and you're watching the foot race, and instead of everyone actually trying to run, everyone's spending their entire time trying to grab the ankles or thwack the shins of all the other competitors versus just running. So aggravating.
I would disagree with your comment, because like, think about it right now, is like, if anyone is trying to whack at the ankles, it's Microsoft,
It's Microsoft.
because they have no
Yeah.
titles.
No, I'm saying everyone.
But
I'm saying everyone.
No,
not
no. Because like, yes, is Sony trying to like potentially like stop it from happening? Of course, every company is. But what I'm trying to say is that
If
the
there's
same
12 racers, Microsoft is trying to buy 6 of them. Is trying to sponsor 6 of them. That's what I'm saying. They want to get to the finish line. Like, if you're saying if they're buying up all these studios,
Mikey, the more detail you put into your metaphor, the less it's making sense to me.
Yeah. So what
um,
I'm trying to say basically is like, you're saying that that the people are not racing each other, rather just trying to knock each other down. Whereas I say Sony is so far ahead, they don't even have to knock the person down because they're not even in arm reach. Microsoft's behind trying to grit all the stragglers and knock them down so they can at least try to catch up. Because what games have came out recently? God of War Ragnarok. What games are coming out? Like, it's just like, they have titles. Microsoft still doesn't have titles. Like,
no, I agree with you.
Your metaphor doesn't work.
For me.
That's perfectly plausible. That's perfectly plausible. My metaphor is bollocks.
I just
it makes sense in my head.
Yeah.
And well done for the appropriate use of bollocks. You should always use your bollocks appropriately. Is this just another symptom of the mismanagement of Xbox?
Yes. It always has been.
No, I don't think this specifically can be blamed on Xbox management so much as it just seems to be them being in a very difficult position. I think like pretty much everything else going on Microsoft is a symptom of their mismanagement, but I think this is just them fucking things up, and this shit like beating them while they're down.
Well, I think this comes back to 2 things. Mitch is again. I hate myself for agreeing with Mitch more and more. I don't know what drugs he's feeding me secretly.
I shipped you some Alani.
If you take I mentioned this before, the 5 whys methodology. Why is Microsoft upset that the sale or the purchase of ActiVision Blizzard King hasn't gone through? Well, they couldn't compete with the popular IP that Sony had and the market share that they were selling in the console market. Well, why couldn't they do that? And if you go all the way back, it goes back to the Xbox One original design, and how shit that went. So basically, they went from the 360, where they were on top, hit the bed. PlayStation 4 took over, and PlayStation never looked back. And Microsoft have constantly been playing catch up. And as to borrow a Mitchism, they've been spending daddy's money trying to catch up. And this is just another example of them having to do that, because they seemingly, with the acquisitions that they've historically made, the most notable one being Bethesda Softworks, that's not worked out for them, because Bethesda haven't put anything out.
They have, though, but they were games that were exclusive to the other platform, a deal that they honoured. To be fair to them, I would say.
Whatever the fucking time loop game that no one really cared about.
Deathloop.
Yeah, see, it's so inconsequential, I'd forgotten what it was. And okay, you've got Redfall coming out.
That's Bethesda's games in general.
It's no different to before they purchased them, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, well, I also wanted to, like, well, but you're taking the words out of my mouth. Like, literally, I gotta say, like, why is this mismanagement? It's mismanagement because they shouldn't have been here in the first place. They've had almost 10 years.
Sorry, Mitch. Can I just say? I just want to say something. Is in all the instances, if you look at other industries where you try and spend your way to number one, it only works out in a fraction of cases. And the most recent one that I can think of is the LA Rams winning the Super Bowl.
I was gonna say the same thing.
They went all in. We're going to spend big. We're going to hire. We're going to sign contracts with all of these free agents, and we're going to win one Super Bowl, and we're going to be shit for years afterwards.
Yep.
And that's proving to be true.
Tampa Bay did the same thing.
Yep. And to roll that exactly what you're saying into business, because I was studying this for some stuff for my work. It was a book called Good to Great, about a bunch of like businesses that stayed great for a very long time. And one of the things was that for the management and the leadership of the companies, 14 out of the 15 top companies did not buy/hire from without of the company to try and make themselves great.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that came up within the company itself.
But unfortunately, this one within the company needs to go. No. I'm not disagreeing with you.
He's saying, we're not doing well. Here, let's buy this studio. Let's buy that studio. Let's buy this talent and make ourselves great. And you say like the only people who are successful at buying themselves to number one, they might get to number one, but they don't stay number one for very long. Yep. And you were saying, were you referring to Microsoft in general, or just the leadership that they shouldn't have been here in the first place? Because I was going to say, like, would you prefer Microsoft was not in the video game space?
Well, let me. Yeah, I'll finish the thought because Mick Mumble interrupted me, but it was a good example.
Everyone interrupts everyone. I take it personally.
It's fine. No, it's not good. No, what I was going to say was like basically like Mick Womble is the point I was going to say, which basically is they shouldn't have been here in the first place. They had the Xbox One disaster. They fired their guy. What was his name?
Don Matrick.
Don Matrick. They brought in Phil Spencer. They're like, Phil Spencer is going to be our guy. You can there is a set of time you can give someone to do their job where they can make mistakes, where they can make adjustments. You know, this turnaround was not going to be a short-term thing, but it is
called 90 days.
It's not a 10-year thing here. Like, this is not a 10-year turnaround project. This could have been resolved much faster. And the fact that the
inconsistencies
of the company is consistent, which is a really crazy term to think about. It's consistent throughout its entire tenure. It's still to this day happening.
Dysfunctional companies do dysfunctional things.
Yep, and it's still happening to this day. And even when they bring in functional companies, like something like a Bethesda, and maybe use that to learn from them, instead of doing that, they ended up making them more dysfunctional.
Bethesda don't need any help with dysfunction.
I don't think that's fair, personally. I really don't think there's enough evidence to support either idea yet in terms of Bethesda. Because Bethesda have been dysfunctional for years. I think the only difference now, compared to before, is that they're not taking advantage of consumers nearly as much as they used to when they were owned by a private equity company. So, in my opinion, it's a bit more positive than negative so far. But I don't know how things will bear out over the next few
years. Why they're more mad about this whole situation in the first, it's like, why is this a thing of mismanagement? Yes, it is, because you shouldn't have not been forced to be in this position and be this desperate to pick up this one company that has this one game that you want, because you can't make a game as good as that one game. And it's like, all the other companies makes total sense. Bethesda Softworks makes greatly designed titles, not my cup of tea, that's fine. But to a lot of people, they're hugely popular. People love them, and they have a cult following. Great. And they don't even have that in their repertoire. This is the studio that has fucking Halo and can't get Halo right. and has had Halo for 10 ever since. But Bungie walked away. They could never get Halo to be fixed ever again. Like, it's just like,
Yep.
if you can't do that, and then you feel like you have to go somewhere else for it, and you have to be that desperate to buy the most popular shooter in the history of video games. And then when things aren't going your way to get this game, you're complaining.
Well,
I mean, why wouldn't you
I
complain
don't.
if you're trying to?
I don't object to them complaining about it, because if I were in their situation, I'd be complaining about it. Because, like we said, I don't agree with the basis on which the CMA have made the decision.
Agreed.
It's like they've said, we don't want you to have that much IP, and we're going to use this random reason for you not to get it.
But basically, in a nutshell, like, to me, this is the last straw. I mean, I've had a last straw with Phil for a while. Like, he should have been gone a while ago. But this is a last straw. Like, if this does not go through, he needs to walk away.
He wears really cool T-shirts of the companies who work underneath him.
If he is not able to get this acquisition to go through, he needs to walk away. He actually should have walked away already, but he needs to walk away. Like, I don't think he'll have to walk away. Sure.
I just want to say, though, because I think we're getting too, like, we're deviating too much into the realm of what Microsoft has done wrong in the past, and not looking at their situation from the circumstances that they have right now.
So, Liam, before you finish that point, sorry, I respect you immensely, particularly because you and I have both had haircuts today.
That's a good reason. No, I like that reason.
Like I was saying, the reason that we are where we are is because of what's happened.
And what was failed to do, like what was failed to be fixed.
Post hoc, that ergo propter hoc, because of it.
Like, we're trying to say, like, it's the symptom of the problem, and right now we are dealing with not the after effects,
it's the ongoing illness.
Yeah.
If we're going to use a medical metaphor,
The chronic illness.
Yeah. So I absolutely agree with you, but there's the Spanish philosopher. Normally my memory's absolutely great, except for when I want to conflate things on this show. The translation from Spanish being, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't look at what Microsoft have done to get to this point, they'll never be able to fix it.
Done to themselves, by the way.
Yeah, and what's happened is they haven't been able to put out the IP that they've promised, or they've not put out the IP that they did promise in a good enough state that was actually popular. And I really firmly believe that they haven't undone the harm that was done at the original launch meeting presentation.
I mean, I don't disagree with all of that, though. I don't disagree.
I know you don't disagree with it.
My perspective on this is if they had been operating better, you can make the argument that they wouldn't even need this acquisition, because Halo would be going well. All of their other factions would be going well. There'd be far less disorganization within the organization. But the one thing that we aren't talking about is them buying Activision specifically to prop up Game Pass. Because to me personally, like, it's been just under a year since PlayStation launched its competitor Game Pass, and we all made fun of it before it came out because it's not really Game Pass, is it? But when you look at the two things side by side, I'm just going to say it. Like, as of late, PlayStation Extra is a far better service in terms of new stuff being added more frequently, it being a better value for money. And even if someone were to disagree and say, no, Game Pass is better, the difference between the two is pretty negligible, if you ask me.
I agree with you, Liam, but can I ask you a question?
When it launched,
hold on. I need to ask Liam a question.
We took the piss out of it when it launched.
I'm interrupting you this time, because you interrupted me last time. I got you this time.
I mean,
Liam, let me ask you.
You're just interrupting each other.
Let me ask you a question, Liam. Why does Microsoft have Game Pass in the first place? Because they don't have titles, right? So like they would have never even thought of making Game Pass because they didn't have because like they would have titles. People would be buying their games at now $70 and buying them in lump sums, and they wouldn't even have to think about, oh my god, we need a streaming service because we need people to give us money because we don't have the titles to give them, so we need to put it on a service and hopefully they just like buy it up. Like what the thing is, like and this is what the movie studios are learning now really quickly too, is streaming is not as lucrative as people think it is. It was only lucrative because Netflix owned all the market share. And what happened was once the studios started to make their own streaming services, they found that people would go off their streaming services and back on the streaming services at an inconsistent rate. So now, if you look at the time frame between when the streaming services launched in 2020 and then you come to where we are today, you will see a drastic difference of what the companies are doing now. Now Disney is no longer going to put their movie on Disney Plus after 90 days. They are going to now put it on digital purchase and digital renting and wait the 3-month window like they always would have done in the past. Because why? It makes them more money. Because they're finding that the streaming service is not working. So
I agree with all of this, but the thing is that Microsoft have made their decision to pivot to this direction. You know, it's like, yes, it was a necessity for them because they couldn't get their content right, because they weren't putting out enough stuff. You know, they changed the paradigm of how consumers feel about playing games, or by which means they play games. And, you know, we're stuck with this new paradigm now. So if they want to prop up their service, they need more content for it.
Don't disagree.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with you, Liam. If they want Game Pass to be successful, they need more stuff on there, and they haven't been good at putting out quality Xbox-related titles for the promise that they made when
getting Halo right isn't going to change that.
No, but I will absolutely admit like, yes, Xbox was driven to the necessity of creating game, but like Netflix was like, hey, here's an idea, let's do this. Well, they weren't something else, but
they identified a gap in the market. That's different.
Exactly. And Microsoft, in a way, did not identify, but kind of co-opted I wouldn't say a gap in the market, but I'd say a thin area of the market, because I personally, do you know what had in my Xbox Game Pass before? Humble Bundle. Like, I'll spend $10 and I'll get myself 3 to 5 to 19 games for $10 or whatever it was, because I wanted to try them. And I'm like, okay, this is a low enough barrier of entry for me to be able to try these games, because normally my library over there of the hard games that I own are ones that I'm already fully convinced I am going to play this game from stem to stern, and I'm going to love it, and I'm going to get every dollar I can out of it. And that's the only time I would shell out for a full price new game. Like, that was my old, that's still mostly my paradigm, especially because of my reduction of time available. I'm not like, I don't rent games, and I never would have rented games at the time. Like, even when I would have wanted to, it would have been when I couldn't drive, and it would have been difficult to convince my dad to go down and let me rent a game for 2 days and then have to take it back, stuff like that. But Game Pass has allowed me to try, I'd say only like six or seven games over the last year, but 6 or 7 games that I wouldn't have tried. Like, and I'm on the cheapest thing, like $9 or $10.50 or $9.99 or whatever it is, whatever the cheapest Game Pass for PC is. And that is enough for me to be able to. Okay. We'll put on another thing real quick. I'm almost done here at the podcast. Okay. And like, even though, yes, I've paid Microsoft $120 over the last year and maybe only played 6 or 7 games, that occasionally would allow me to jump into like Sea of Thieves or something like that without having to go do a bunch of stuff. And it is a niche part of the market, and I'm glad that service exists. Like, in a way, that's more attractive to me than old Microsoft. Like, if old Microsoft was like still running strong, like an exact like 1-to-1 comparison for Sony, I probably would have played almost 0 Microsoft games over the last like 3 to 5 years, because almost all of them wouldn't have attracted my desire to 100% that game.
But yeah,
I would argue
I'm in
that
agreement with Mikey on this one. I mean, this Game Pass was the reason that I got a Series X. Mikey, if you want to dip out for a moment, go for it.
but I also
I just assumed that
Oh.
everything was okay indoors. But
I would agree with
what I
Mikey.
would say is, sorry, Mitch, let me finish my point. For God's sake, my name isn't Matt. What I would say is, I also agree with Mitch. It's kind of, where are the comparable titles? So you can have you could have, if all things were being equal, you would have your Avowed out by now. And that would be your comparable title to, I don't know, your God of War or
Horizon or whatever.
Horizon, something like that. And you could also be putting some other titles onto your services, but you would have people also paying up front to get your AAA launch titles. Not that I would, because I don't buy games at launch anymore, because and I don't pre-order anymore, because I'm a sensible human being, unlike you lot. You're all part of the problem.
I still have not pre-ordered Tears of the Kingdom.
Good for you. You stay strong.
I also agree with you all on this as well. But I also would say, like, Microsoft, it's like paying that has devalued how I feel about their first party titles. Like, to me, I would never pay $70 for their titles because of how much they devalued themselves through Game Pass. And I actually would agree with Liam too on the topic of, like, also what devalues them too at the same time is the fact of PlayStation Extra. I mean, is a much better experience in regards to quality of title, and I am paying almost the same price I am for like a.
Yeah, but then you've got,
but,
if you're
but
a PS4,
I'm
you're a PS4 owner, you just got screwed because you can't play Marvel Spider-Man anymore.
I mean,
it's only the PS5 version.
That's the same thing with Xbox. It's the same thing happens on Xbox.
Yeah, same thing happens on Xbox.
They both remove titles.
My brother-in-law could not play Hi-Fi Rush because he had an original Xbox One.
It's
Quantum Break and Marvel Spider-Man are
well, like Microsoft put up Red Dead Redemption 2 for a few months and then removed it. It's the same difference.
Yeah, but because they have no 2K titles on their platform.
But that's all I'm trying to say. But what was moving on?
Right, let's move on to the Microsoft and ABK response to the decision, which I've surmised as.
I just want to say, have you seen Bobby Kotick's response, Keith?
Yes.
Very good, very good.
Yes, Bobby Kotick, a man who once threatened to have an employee killed, responded in a really reasonable and business-like way by threatening the UK.
What an idiot!
Oh, it's great.
Like,
this man would never threaten a woman. God damn it!
It's like, dude, you not know the hand that feeds you right now? Like, that's just, like, you're still under review. Like, it's like, oh my god.
The whole response to this, like we were saying, Microsoft's response is basically what I would have assumed a lawyer saying. We are reviewing the decision and we will appeal. And then, okay, so the head of Microsoft came out and said he views the decision as being bad and it doesn't look good in terms of the UK being open for business and being the UK said that they wanted to be a hub for the tech sector. This doesn't show that, which it doesn't.
Yes, and absolutely fair.
And Rishi Sunak came out. Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister of the UK for the moment. I have to say that because we've had 4 Prime Ministers in as many years.
Who's Rishi Sunak?
He's the smimey bastard one whose wife was a non-domiciliary daughter of an Indian tech billionaire.
I'm sorry. That sounds like too many people to me.
Yeah. He was called Dishy Rishi during the pandemic. But if you, so right, okay, where am I going to go with this? How do you ingratiate yourself with the people who just disapproved your deal? Is it threatening them by taking away all the potential services if they don't approve it under appeal?
Well,
That's a slight rhetorical question, but I would like to get.
The problem was that they didn't have.
You're too far away from your mic, Mike.
I thought part of the problem was that they didn't have a avenue for appeal.
They do have an avenue for appeal. It's just based on historical context, the likelihood of them winning the appeal is really low. It's unlikely now that this deal will get approved in the UK. Part of me thinks that the EU would just approve it offhand, just to give two fingers to the UK.
If they're smart, they'll do that.
Well, let's go around the room now. Now that we know their responses, let's go around the room. What is the percentage that you feel that this will get approved or not approved? You decide which percentage you want to go with.
Do we want to go region by region because it's not being reviewed in every territory?
So I would just say overall. I would say the overall acquisition. Yeah. Because, like, I'm assuming if they can't get approval in multiple countries, it's going to run into issues with them actually merging, correct?
Not really, because
or is it they just can't do business in that country, basically?
They would still have the ability to do business under the regulatory framework of the country. So this is where it causes complications. So if, say, the EU and let's just ignore New Zealand. Sorry, New Zealand. You've got an amazing rugby team, but you've got the same population size as Scotland. In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be a big deal.
Say the EU is the only one to approve it. Like, besides that, all the other countries said no.
The only one to approve it. So everyone in the EU would have access to all of ActiVision Blizzard King's titles via Microsoft services, and they would just region lock that out of everywhere else.
So you could not play Call of Duty anymore?
No, you could. You'd have to buy it.
Physical copy.
But you can play it for free on Game Pass.
You could digital copy. Yeah, you could buy it as a digital copy or a hard copy.
Yeah,
but you could still play it. You just wouldn't have it accessible via whatever service Microsoft is giving.
You could buy it through the normal means. That would not stop the already approved methods of distribution and consumption, meaning buy a disc or buy it from whatever the already approved program stores.
Digital store or CD keys or the Xbox store or wherever you get your download codes.
Yeah, so it would not suddenly make Call of Duty unplayable in the UK. It would just be like, nope, you got to buy the disc, which I think, which is what everyone's already doing anyway. And at the moment, and like Warzone, however that works, like because I mean it's free to play.
You can just download it once and then uninstall it straight away, just like you used to do.
Yeah, so it's only. So based on the CMA's decision, if for me as a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, if the decision went through in the EU and the US, for example, I wouldn't be able to have access to Activision Blizzard King's titles on Game Pass. I would have to buy them. That's it.
It would be kind of like how Netflix already works.
It's exactly how it is now.
So if everyone said no, then they can't merge at all.
They can't. The acquisition would fall through, and no one would be able to purchase.
Would they still want to here's a crazy curveball question. Hold on, is would they still want it to go through if the only place that approved them was the EU? If every other place did not approve the acquisition, would they still do it?
Well, you're looking at how big's the? You're looking at a population of over 200 million people.
Yeah.
And they can still
if,
deal in other countries for years to come.
But
whilst
the
they're-
percentage of those consumers that buy games, though, compared to the worldwide market that would have more limited access.
This is a weird one because you'd also there's countries who aren't reviewing the acquisition as well. There's territories who aren't reviewing it. So Microsoft is also looking at those and saying, well, if it doesn't go through in the UK, as Michael Pachter said years ago, who gives a shit about the UK? It's 5% of the global gaming market. It's a rounding error.
Yeah,
I disagree. It was 5% of the global gaming market is currently more than the revenue stream from streaming only services, as was presented to the CMA, which is 1% of the overall gaming market globally. So the overall gaming market is around about $180 billion a year. The current streaming only market for that is 1%, so 1.8 billion.
Yeah.
VR equates to 10% of the overall gaming market.
I didn't realize how much smaller that was than VR.
Yeah. So
we're talking tiny sums in terms of the overall gaming market that the CMA have chosen to say we're going to block this based on 1% growth. The potential growth of 1% of the current total gaming market. I don't believe that's going to be a thing anytime soon.
All right, so let's go around the room and guess our percentages. I'll start with you.
With whom?
You.
Okay.
Whom?
I'm gonna split it by region because I'm just being difficult.
Nope. It's full acquisition or no acquisition.
Just mute his mic and keep talking.
He has the power to do that, but then I just down the stream and change the stream key.
No, I mean you mute him.
Can we add for emphasis, Mitch, that the acquisition goes through as Microsoft wants it to?
No, just it is that it will go through whatever it takes to go through.
They'll choose to purchase it regardless. Okay.
Yeah, like whatever the deal they have to do to make it go through, like that is.
They'll break their back a fourth time.
I don't. See, if you break it down by territory, you can see it going through in certain areas. If you just say it's not going to happen globally because everyone's going to follow suit or no one will like this, I'd say it's a hard no. If you break it down by territory, I can see it going through in certain territories.
Okay, so you're at 100%. It will go through. All right.
In some way, shape, or form.
Liam.
The more I think about it, the more I feel like it really benefits them more if they purchase it regardless of who doesn't want them to, like the UK or the US, for instance. And I think it all comes down to next month, because if the EU says no, I think that's it. I think it's over. I think they aren't even be bothered to battle it, and they just give up and probably try with some other company.
Well, and this is what I was going to say. Is if Liam's a very smart guy. Few people realise this.
Thank you.
He's also handsome and modest.
I'm also British, so that works in my favour. My accent.
If the EU say no, the deal is dead. Globally, there is no way that the deal is going to go through. The sale will fall through, and Microsoft will pay $3 billion plus all of their legal fees and get nothing in return.
Big L.
Again, to my question, do you think it's going to go through, Liam? What's your percentage of it going through?
I'm 50-50. I think it's all contingent on the EU. 50-50 is how I feel.
Okay. Mike, what you got? No. What's your percentage of it going through?
As much as I hate this, like I hate that the EU being the fulcrum or linchpin of
Well, the U.S. market
any
also
decision.
it's on appeal, so the U.S. market could also influence it too. So it's not the only one. It's just the UK is the first one to really do something to make it go whoa.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's we're the first domino to fall, but if the domino just over the channel stays upright.
Yeah. Well, because I have not more faith, that'd be stretching it too far, but I have, I feel that an FTC decision might more easily be overturned than, as you said, a CMA decision on something. But I think if the EU does not approve it, the chances are 30% or less. If the EU,
zero. If the EU don't approve it, the deal is dead.
that's where I said or less.
But
less.
But Mike, I'm not saying if the EU doesn't approve it. I'm saying as of now, what do you think your percentage will be of it going through? Of this purchase happening?
I think just because of how specious the current, because they approved the one version, but now they're saying, on this, what I would say is an unrelated issue in the market, I would still say about a 60% chance of it going through.
Okay, I'm gonna say
slightly more than 50-50.
I'm going the opposite. I think it's 60% chance not happening. Especially after
then we're all average. 50, 50, 50, 50, 60, 40, 40, 60.
After all this this magic talk of trying to come up with a reason to make it not go through, it makes
someone text Burkhoff and ask him so that we can get a tiebreaker.
No, it's too late. He's in the mountains. You can't get a hold of him.
He's shooting mountain lions.
Yeah, he's shooting bears and
he's got a shovel to dig up all the dead gangsters in the desert.
Off of a Shetland pony.
His first kill is in honor of Phil Spencer. He may be out of work soon, so
he's trying to become the Tomb Raider.
If this deal doesn't go through, Phil Spencer has immediately got to have his job terminated for Microsoft to save face.
Do you say that? Would you say that would happen?
Yes.
It should happen.
I don't think he will. If it doesn't go through, I don't think he will lose his job.
I would be as
Microsoft.
He's not saying he shouldn't lose his job.
Microsoft loves this man.
I don't know.
They freaking gave him his own title.
Is going to be so bad if this doesn't go through.
They made
they've already faced a ton of upheaval and bad press and just the way they're operated is being thrown into question because of all of this going on.
But they're successful with
keep him on after this deal doesn't go through.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things. It doesn't matter how much the person is deserved of it, or how good or competent a leader they are. They need to make a point. They need to get him out of the company. They need to make him, sorry, Phil, you're going to have to step down, mate. We'll go somebody else in after this disaster. We can't have
sacrifice you at the altar to our shareholders because is it when this decision was announced, the ABK share price dropped by 11.5%.
Yeah. Real quick, is Xbox itself, that division of Microsoft, is that profitable? Does that make money?
Yes.
Okay. Because they just
shared the revenue stream, and it was pretty close of almost just breaking even.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty close to breaking even as long as it's on the plus side.
It's just I think it's barely on the plus side.
Yeah, it's not breaking it down.
The figures that they also shared the figures because the revenue is also covered acquisitions.
Fair enough.
If you take the money that they committed out, the whole thing of it is how you want to. Well, it's that old adage: "There's lies, damn lies, and statistics." So if they want to say that it's profitable, they'll find a way to say that it's profitable.
Yeah. Because the reason I was bringing this up is because Xbox itself may or may not probably is making money, but it's not like. This is our cash cow versus Sony. Their video game division is what's keeping that company afloat.
Yes, and not as true as it used to be.
Oh, but here's
not exclusively, but it is far and away. It is far and away it's way more. Yes, they're still making money elsewhere, but their video game department is making plenty of money.
Their hardware stuff, so TVs and stereos and all that kind of stuff, is losing the money hand over fist.
Yeah. But let me just say one thing really, really quick. It's saying if like, oh yeah, Phil Spencer's going to go after this, who are they going to bring in? Like, let me just be one quick small frank thing about this. Are they
That guy who tanked Stadia?
oh my God, Phil Spencer.
Phil Harrison.
Phil Harrison.
Phil Harrison secretly worked for Sony.
But here's the thing. Like, if Phil Spencer goes, who's the next one to move up? Most likely, it's going to be their head of Worldwide Studios, which is Matt Booty. You want the guy that has tanked all the studios that they've owned for the last 10 years? Also, he has never
get rid of him right now.
Also,
anyway.
he has never been fired. He has been here since Phil has. And he hasn't gotten these studios to work right. So, like, why is this man has this job?
So I know exactly who they're going to hire, Mitch.
Me.
And he's going to usher in a new era for Xbox. Kaz Hirai.
No, he was the CEO of Sony. He'd be down.
They're going to wave so much money under his nose. They're going to $599 million a year.
US dollars.
US dollars.
Yeah, not just any dollar, a US dollar.
Not Canadian dollars, US dollars. And he's going to jump ship, and he's going to reignite the Ridge Racer franchise, exclusive to Xbox.
And giant enemy crabs.
My answer is Pete Hines, by the way. I think Pete Hines would be a good person to put in that position.
Pete Hines would be a good person to head up Xbox Studios.
Who was the one that was former EA? Did the tattoos all the time?
Peter
Molyneux. No.
No.
Wrong, Peter.
Yeah.
He
became.
Was he ever the right Peter?
He wasn't he. Didn't he become like not the owner, like the manager, not the manager,
chairman of Liverpool Football Club, and then he left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
But wasn't he also the head of Xbox? Peter Moore, wasn't he the head of Xbox for a bit too?
Yes,
they did really well under him. Maybe they should just bring him back.
They did. They brought over Grand Theft Auto to Xbox.
Was he the 360 era?
Yeah,
Peter
he
Moore?
was the one that went, let me show you a tattoo. Grand Theft Auto. Sexy.
He's too old for this shit right now.
He could be an advisor to help bring the right person in for the job.
That's definitely on the Murtaugh list for him.
Well, it will be an interesting podcast if the acquisition doesn't grow and Phil Spencer does get fired, and then we can play the game of who would take over for Phil Spencer. But until then,
on that note,
yes, my friend, good call.
Oh, that would be good. I'm sure Xbox will
Did you guys play or like RE4?
Yes. Game of the year so far.
It's not the best one, but it's pretty good.
I adore it.